Welcome to The Current Buzz, the podcast where we break down what's happening now at Oklahoma Electric Cooperative and OEC Fiber and why it matters to you.
Each episode, we're bringing you practical insights, behind-the-scenes conversations, and real-world answers to the questions our members and subscribers are asking. Thanks for tuning in. Let's jump into today's conversation.
All right, welcome to The Current Buzz. On this episode, we're actually going to talk with Russell Philpott, who returns for a round 2 of efficiency tips. This time, we're going to talk about how to beat the summer heat. This is going to be more of a fast-paced, like popcorn-style conversation packed with energy-saving tips and, typical questions and answers you might normally hear. But first, we like to kick off every episode with the top 3 things you need to know. The first thing I want to bring up is our Energy Solutions on our website. If you go to www.okcoop.org/efficiency, we have all kinds of tools. We have a home audit calculator where you can plug in your square footage and the different things you have in your home, a number of TVs, freezers, and it kind of calculates how that house is performing based on your bills. We have rebate offers. We have free home energy audit, which Russell does for us. We have, checklist of tips to go through to help save energy. Just a lot of tools there at the website.
Yes. And last month, we sent a handful of employees to the Special Olympics Summer Games in Stillwater. So to read about their experience, you can check out the Co-op News magazine. I think that will be in the July issue. So check that out when you get it. They had a great time.
Also want to touch base on our electric rate options. They've been around, 6 years, 7 years, the other rate options we have.
Yes.
So we have 3 residential rate options. We have the standard home rate, we have an EV rate, and then we have the time of use rate. So you can go to our website. We actually have a rate calculator on that same landing page where you can type in your account number, and it will actually populate your usage for the past year and put them with the 3 different rate options we have and kind of tell you which one is best suited for you. So if you haven't looked at your rate in a while, it's probably worth a shot, especially if you're on the time of use rate. I think switching off that one is most of the time a better deal for most people.
Well, now we welcome Russell to the show. So welcome back.
Thank you very much.
This is your second
Thanks
time with us. Save the winter efficiency. He was with us in January, maybe February, to give us winter efficiency tips. So next winter, when that rolls around, go find that episode and you'll save some money. So we are just going to kind of kick off with a round of questions. I'm going to ask each of you a question. Feel free to chime in if you're not asked one, but you have some important input. The first one is for you, Daniel. At what temperature do you typically keep your thermostat set during the summer and why?
I keep mine at 73. I can go to 74, but I'm not a small individual that I put off a lot of body heat, so I definitely like to be a little more on the cooler side. I know people that put it at 68, and I'm just not willing to pay that on my electric bill, so I go to 73, 74. That's where I'm mostly comfortable.
And I think the official recommendation is 78.
Yeah, I don't think I can handle that.
That's still really warm.
It's still pretty warm, and I will pay for that difference. I got to be a little more comfortable than 78. I'd need somebody with an ice pack in front of a fan to keep me comfortable at 78, I think.
I think a lot of people feel the same. Russell, what strategies could members use to stay comfortable without overworking their air conditioner?
Well, I think, using ceiling fans or fans probably be the easiest way, but they're really only for when you're in the room with them. It's just using energy and not keeping anyone cooler when they're running throughout the house. And a lot of houses I go in, they're running in every room, and they're not using a tremendous amount of energy, but they really just need to be running in the room where the people are.
That's how I get by with 74. Ceiling fans, box fans.
Yes. You had a really good analogy one time about how ceiling fans cool, because I still see a lot of people when you go over to other people's homes and they just have ceiling fans on with nobody in the room. And you had a good analogy one time. I don't really remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of if there's not a person in there to feel that air, then it's just wasted energy.
Fans cool people, not rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next one is for you again, Russell. How do you decide when to adjust your thermostat throughout the day?
Well, what I recommend to people is, depending on how long they're going to be gone, if you're just going to go for an 8-hour work day or something like that, I would probably just leave it at the temperature I want it. I think large fluctuations, especially with demand rates, things like that, and what the utilities are trying to do as far as adjusting their loads and things like that, it's not good for the grid, and it probably isn't saving you any money if if you come home at 5:30 and crank the AC down. And you're going to have to overcome the heat at some time anyhow. So it's probably better if it's just spread out throughout the day and smaller bites. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to be gone for 2 or 3 days, certainly would recommend, raising it several degrees, and then it's got value in letting it run for a while when you get home and to overcome the heat. You have to overcome the heat and everything that's inside the home. This couch is going to hold heat, and you've got to overcome it, and you're doing it with electricity.
That's a great point. Daniel, we already touched on this, but what role do ceiling fans play in keeping your home comfortable during hot weather?
A crucial role. Who here likes warm, stagnant air? I think like nobody, right? So fans have that moving air, just helps you feel cool. Think of like a nice day, you're in the shade, that breeze just cools you, right? It feels good. The fans are doing the same thing as a breeze, in my opinion. They're just putting a little air moving on me. It feels more comfortable, and it's kind of, I have to have moving air. Even when in the wintertime, honestly, I got to have a ceiling fan on low or something. I just got to have moving air. Stagnant air just feels icky.
Okay, Russell, how often should someone change their air filter and why?
Well, this is a tricky one because it's going to depend. It's going to depend on how often you use your heat and air system. If there's no air moving through that filter, there's not going to be anything accumulate on it. And also the home. If you have a lot of pets and things like that, you're gonna get more things to clog it up. It's also going to depend on the structure itself. How leaky is it? Where's the leaks coming from? And so dusty. And even if you live in a rural setting and it's fields all around you, you're gonna get it clogged up more. I would just look at it, and if it looks dirty at all, I would replace it.
Yeah, I mean, think of your air system as a big air pump. And so anytime that starts to get clogged, it restricts the airflow into that system. So if you look at it, it's got dust buildup or hair or something, just change it out. There's, like he said, there's not a one size fits all on when to change it out. You just kind of got to look and know, I do mine every month through May and through September. Typically it's hot. I want that system to work as efficiently as possible. I've got a dog. So it's kind of up to each individual situation.
What about you, Daniel? How expensive do you use? Cheap filters? Or?
I use cheap filters. Yeah. Amazon. I actually set it up on a revolving. Every 4 months they send me a 4-pack, and I get a reminder on my Alexa every month. It's time to change your air filter. Just make it idiot proof that way. If I forget, there's something reminding me, whether it's the shipment or the notification. So. And
you have a well sealed up house too, so you're not going to be filtering a lot of, stuff from outside.
It's that Pyrenees hair. That dog is the amount of hair that thing puts off.
Yeah. It's a hairy filter.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel, what have you done to reduce heat coming through windows or doors?
So I actually have built a large porch onto my back side of my house. My previous house, I did the same thing on a little smaller scale. So last house was brick exterior, and my son's room was west facing, just getting blasted by that summer heat. I actually saw this is when he was a baby. The baby monitor showed his room was like 78, 79. We keep it at 73, 74. So it was like, man, his room's getting pretty warm. He's sweating. So I like to cook outside. I like to be outside. So I built a lean-to cover, if you will, over that side of his room. And because I have the tools I have, I actually did some thermal imaging of that brick wall compared to our room, which was not shaded. And our bricks were getting to 146 degrees on a hot summer day, and his room was reduced down to 96. His internal temperature dropped like 5 degrees that it needed to. So just shading the outside of your home can do a huge thing as far as saving the inside. That brick, think of that. It's just that heat just sits there and radiates next to your room for hours on end. So just shade. I like to shade the outside any chance I get. Yeah, you can do curtains and blinds and that sort of stuff, but that heat's already kind of making it into that thing, right? It's heating that up. So shading the outside's better.
Okay. I like that. Now, Russell, maybe someone doesn't have the tools or the skills to build a shaded structure. So what effect does that direct sunlight have on a home during the day? And are there any other tips you would offer?
Yeah, well, Daniel was right. The the problem with it is when you can feel the heat personally, but even if you have shades up on the inside of your home, the heat's already in. And like I mentioned earlier, every surface in your house holds heat. Those curtains would hold heat. That is still, if it's inside the envelope of the home, it's a temperature you're going to have to overcome. And you may not have the tools to do it, but if there's any way you can get it done, whatever, it's really most important to do the shading on the outside of the house.
Now, shading, the curtains will help from that sun heating every object in the house.
Or you personally, if you're
Right.
sitting, if your chair's near that, no doubt.
So
it will
curtains
do
and
that,
blinds are still a thing.
but you're still going to have to spend the energy to overcome that heat.
Right.
Okay, so Daniel, what changes have helped your home feel cooler without lowering the thermostat? You've mentioned ceiling fans, shading the outside. Is there anything else that has kept you from lowering the thermostat?
Ceiling fans, box fans. My son actually has a ceiling fan and a box fan on at night. I would do the same, but I don't want to freeze the wife out. So fans are it. I think that's the best ticket we can do. Anything else is going to use more electricity. They've got portable air conditioners. You're just using more electricity to kind of do the same thing. So fans are a very low wattage tech to help keep you comfortable.
And kind of along those lines, we know the kitchen can create a lot of heat from ovens. And is there any tips you would offer just in the kitchen? Different things we can use.
So I bought a convection oven, which is 115 volts, so it uses less wattage than my actual oven. And a lot of times I can get by just using that versus heating up this big cavity for one pan to whatever I'm heating up. So air fryers use less electricity, put off a little less heat than an oven. Ovens are just big users, so they make appliances these days that are a little more efficient and put off a little less heat.
What about pressure cookers?
Same concept.
Pretty efficiently manufactured.
More so than an oven, for sure. Ovens use 220 volt. A lot of times they're 4,500 watts, and your max wattage on a pressure cooker is, I don't know, it's going to be a little over 1,000 probably. So not even close.
And it just creates so much heat.
Yeah, like you said, you have to overcome that. You're heating that position in your room is now having to be overcome by the air conditioner.
You're using energy producing that heat, then you're using energy air conditioning the home to overcome that.
To offset it, yeah. It's a double whammy. Or I also cook outside a lot. So anytime I can move that cooking out to my grill, it's not bringing it in the house. Also, I use a clothesline. I'm old school. Wife doesn't always love it because it does make clothes a little stiffer, but I actually literally strung a line up, cost me $15-20, and anytime we can not use the dryer, I'm all for it.
That's pretty old school, Daniel.
I
told you you're a little more efficient than I am.
I'm getting old school over here.
Okay, another one for you, Daniel. Do your family's daily routines change during extremely hot weather?
No. I think we all want to be able to make changes to help save energy, but in reality, life just sometimes doesn't allow for it, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast. I don't really think we have. We use our pool more, like it's really hot. Maybe the house isn't getting comfortable. We'll just go hop in the pool and try to get more comfortable that way. But I would say not a ton.
Okay. Russell, what activities in your home use the most electricity during the summer?
Well, air conditioning. That is it. Water. If you have a well, watering your lawn would use quite a bit. Pool pumps for people who do have pools. You can always do calculations on that, and a lot of people can save real energy there without affecting their life in any way by reducing how often the pumps are being used.
Yeah, there's calculators online for this too. Obviously, I'm kind of nerdy with this, but I've actually figured out the flow rate of my pump and the gallons of water in your pool, and it'll tell you how long it's going to take to turn over that water. We want our pool to turn over the water at least once a day. More than that seems wasteful. And most pumps are designed to do that in less than 8 hours. So we don't need to run them 24 hours a day.
Okay, Daniel, how do you decide when to run appliances like dishwashers, dryers, or washing machines? Are you one of those that kind of likes to run those overnight?
Yeah, we definitely try to run a lot of dryer load at nighttime, or I use the sun during the day. But I mean, my wife does dishes when she feels like they need to be done. I'm not gonna, if she wants to do them middle of the day, that's I'm not gonna tell her no on doing dishes.
Yes.
So I think the dryer is the biggest one. Is we'll kick that on at night and let it be ready in the morning.
And it might be determined by if you're on our time of use rate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we talked about rates earlier. If you looked into the EV rate, it's actually cheaper at night. So is it 9 p.m.? Yeah, 9 p.m.
9 p.m. to 5
9 p.m.
a.m.
we go to 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So if you can schedule, a lot of these devices these days are smart, right? You can schedule them to not start for 6 or 8 hours. And if you can move all that load to overnight on the EV rate, it just saves you even more money.
Okay, Russell, what comes to mind when you hear the phrase peak energy demand?
Well, just kind of like, the peak energy demand is what y'all's rates, 3 to 7, basically.
Yes.
So time of use. Yep.
Yeah, time of use rates are 3 to 7, and that's when y'all are wanting to reduce the load. And y'all can speak to it probably better than me, but the real concern is y'all's rates are determined on your really high spikes versus your lower spikes and all that. And if you can flatten that load, that flattens your rates for as a utility. And y'all are kind of in a specific condition because y'all have, compared to other co-ops, a lot more residential. And where some co-ops that have tons of oil and gas stuff that's running 24/7, they have a flatter rate. And a co-op like OEC really needs to work hard to reduce that peak energy demand.
Yeah, and individually, I always think of peak energy demand as the most amount of electricity you're going to use at a single time.
Yep.
A lot of times that is July 27th at 5 p.m. You've come home, you've cranked your air conditioner on, you're starting to cook, maybe your kids are taking a shower. The most energy you're going to consume at one given time is what we call your peak energy demand.
Okay, another one for you, Russell. Why do you think utilities encourage consumers to reduce usage during the hottest hours of the day?
Okay, just what we were talking about. To try to flatten that load on the grid. Just steady usage, and because you're so hot during the middle of the day, air conditioners are typically going to run more, and anything that a utility can do to encourage that not to happen is what we're trying to get away from.
Saves everybody.
Yep, saves everybody.
Yeah, because energy is kind of bought and sold on a market. And so during those really hot spells, price of electricity goes up. Well, we have to pay that. That typically trickles into everything, right? So if we can keep our demand, peak energy demand, low at those times when energy is more expensive, it just makes sense for us to incentivize that.
Okay, Daniel. What are some ways households could reduce electricity use during those periods of extreme heat?
As much as it's hard to do, turn that thermostat up. That's the biggest driver. You're at this time of year, summertime, your HVAC's 50% of your bill. So making changes to that temperature is going to make the biggest impact. One that people don't always think about is water heating. Water heating is probably your number 2 or 3 usage in your house. And you can they have timers to put on those where you can schedule them to not kick on during certain times. And you could have that thing not designed to kick on between 3 and 7 or whatever that time you want. They're insulated. They will hold that water temperature pretty good for quite a few hours. So you could run one for 4 or 5 hours in the morning, 4 or 5 hours when you're going to bed, and probably fine. You don't have to run that 24 hours a day. So it's one of those we don't think about a lot because it just kind of sits in a cabinet and you just expect it to work, right? But it does use a fair amount of electricity.
Yeah, and also, try not to dry clothes during that peak time, and we're talking about using your pool less. Well, it's especially important during those peak times to not be running it during those times.
Okay, this one's for you, Russell. Okay. Which energy saving habits make the biggest difference in a home? Biggest bang for your buck?
Well, I think watching what you do during peak times it would be one. And again, we go back to the pool deal again, and making sure your heat and air equipment's running optimally. Have those tune-ups done and make sure that it's running the way it should be run.
How often should a tune-up be done?
I think it depends on how new it is. Every couple of years, I think would be sufficient on a newer system if everything seems to be going well. But an older system, probably every year. I realize it's expensive, but I think making sure it's running optimally is really worth it, because that's a lot of times what we find with people who are having higher usage is that the system's not operating the way it should.
Okay, Daniel, how do you balance comfort and energy savings during the summer?
Sweat. I just get a little more comfortable being uncomfortable. No, the fans, cooking outside, getting in a pool, anything I can do to not be hot. I sweat quite a bit, so there's definitely a balance there somewhere. But basically, just live a little more uncomfortable for a few months. It's okay. I'll be all right.
Okay, Russell, switching to more home efficiency and maintenance. What maintenance do you typically perform on your cooling system before summer arrives?
Okay. Personally, I don't do any of it. But, I have a HVAC company come out regularly. I'm to the point now I probably want to have it done every year. They need to wash it out. They need to clean the coils. They need to things like that. But they also need to, the main thing is they need to be hooking gauges up and making sure the Freon is correct in it. And that's usually what one of the main issues is going to be if it's not operating correctly. Any of us can go out and wash out our unit and try to clean it by ourselves and maybe do a decent job. But most of us can't hook gauges up to make sure the coolant is at the level it needs to be.
And is it safe to assume that what you would invest in a tune-up, I don't know what those run, but would you recoup that, you think, during the summer months? Or would it take a little?
I think it depends. And it depends on if something was needed. They may come out and clean it up and all, and it's a newer system and is running pretty well. Maybe not, but at least then it's operating correctly. Because when it's not operating correctly, certainly would save, your money, and you'd be more comfortable too.
I've seen some of these companies actually offer, say the tune-up's $80. If they find an issue, that dollar amount comes off the price of whatever needs to be fixed. Yeah. Maybe you've got a fan motor's going bad or a capacitor. Sometimes they'll help offset. Hey, the tune-up price kind of comes off that. So right. They could have caught something and it was instantly saved.
Okay, Russell, another one for you. How does insulation or weather sealing impact the comfort in a home?
Yeah, a lot. And it's the insulation especially is about the law of heat flow, really. So you're going to drag the heat out of your home or vice versa, and it's just going to affect your temperature. I think about, you can have a blanket on, and when it's cold at night or whatever, and you stick your toe out, it's cold still. And if your house isn't totally insulated well, it's the cold is going to get in. So it really needs to be a uniform blanket, of fiberglass, say, it needs to be 14 inches or 10 inches of cellulose. And as far as sealing up the house, there's, it's just really important that it's big leaks. It's usually not the little leaks that I would concern myself with. And people always worry I can see a little bitty light under my door, or I sit by this window and it feels cold, so this has to be a draft. But it's the big leaks that surprise people, that they may have a hatch going in their attic that doesn't fit well, or maybe even missing.
Or uninsulated.
Or uninsulated, just big things you wouldn't think of. And a lot of the leaks in the home are at the attic plane. Okay, so where a duct vent comes through the ceiling, there's a little gap, and where a can light isn't sealed, they just add up to a big leak.
Yeah, and you think about when you mentioned like a duct, you have a little gap in the duct boot coming into the house. So now you have a leak in the home, right, or in the attic, and that conditioned air is blowing into the attic. It's like the double thing again earlier. You're paying to offset the heat that's escaping through the attic, and you're also paying to cool air in the attic because it's not connected. So it's really important.
It is.
Okay, so this one's kind of for both of you, whoever wants to take it. What challenges come with cooling older homes or maybe manufactured homes? What do those members, what can they do during the summer specifically?
Yeah, that's tough. Older homes they're going to be leakier, and just the construction, the codes that were enforced at the time, or if there were any codes, or if code enforcement came to the house when it was being built. Like I said, a lot of the leaks in a home are going to be at the ceiling level, so maybe under some insulation where you don't see them and things like that. It's just those really are going to add up and going to be a challenge to fix. Like I said, it's usually not windows and doors like you think it is.
Well, what I tell people with the windows and doors is if your ceiling line is one of your worst points for two reasons, right? But the one I think of the most is if that air is coming into your house, you ever been in an attic? They're musky, dusty, dirty places, right? That air coming in the home is worse than what I would think is fresh air from a door or window. So I concern yourself less with those exterior walls than your ceiling plate.
Yeah, and on windows, while I'm thinking about it, people think that their windows are leaking, and they can feel it, especially when it's cold. When the air temperature is 90 degrees and your skin's 98, you're not going to notice it. But when the air temperature is 10 degrees and your skin's 98, you notice it. But a lot of times it's not the actual window leaking. It's under the window sill where the window sill meets the wall. A lot of times there'll be a gap there. And if code didn't catch it, or if it's an older home, or if windows have been replaced and they didn't know to caulk that could very well be a leak there.
Yeah, we actually did a little video segment, the Dan's How Do I, and we talked about windows and caulking around them. A lot of times the glass isn't allowing airflow. It's finding the nearest space around it, and that's going to be where you need to caulk, the outside and inside, honestly.
Okay, Russell, which household appliances seem to create the most unwanted heat in the summer? Maybe something people don't think about.
Of course, like Daniel was talking about cooking. Cooking's going to generate heat, and then you got to overcome it with air conditioning. Drying clothes, of course, but anything that's using electricity is generating some heat. And so if you can cut back on any of that, it helps a little. I don't want to give the impression that a 9-watt LED is a lot to overcome, but you are having to overcome some.
Or if you have 30 of those in your house, that adds up.
Yeah, it adds up. It adds up. However, I was, kind of doing the math earlier, like an appliance that uses 1,500 watts, like a space heater does in the winter or whatever. You know how many 9-watt LEDs that takes to be equivalent?
Gosh,
it's like 166.
That's a lot.
Lighting is not the issue
right
that it used to be. Mm-hmm. If you're using LEDs, you can run a lot of lights for what a dryer's running, for example, or a water heater or a space heater.
Right.
Okay, Daniel, how do rising temperatures impact the way your family uses electricity?
We use more of it. I think that's the answer.
Too hot to go outside. So
yeah, I think we just have to we just use more. I don't know that I don't think it really impacts us any other way than it just the
kids
nature
are
of the
home
beast.
For the summer.
Kids are home, doors are opening for dogs, and you got to cook every meal, and it's just we use more of it. That's how it impacts us. It hurts my pocketbook a little more.
Yeah, most of our pain point in Oklahoma, personal pain point, we think about the summer heat, and we expect our bills to be like a lot higher in the summer and all this. But really, the temperature we're having to overcome is worse in the winter. It's just our activities are less. We're not running our pools. We're not doing things like that, and we're staying in. And you can always bundle up and add more clothes. In the summer, you're usually still going to ball games. You're still going to soccer practice. You're still doing stuff. It feels worse because you're in it more.
Yep.
That's a great point. Okay, final question. This is for you, Russell. What energy saving tip do you think more people should know about? Is there one thing that is not common knowledge that you want people to know?
I think it's just things you just don't really think about that could be using energy. We talk in the winter about space heaters. Well, it's just a little one, but it uses a lot of energy. You don't think about a hot tub that you still have going in June when you're not going to use it. It's just the things that are using energy that you don't really think about. Even your pool pump and it's the little surprises that you use every day, but it's got to use energy to produce whatever it's producing.
I'm going to add one here. I just thought about this as we're going back and forth. Is a newer thing that uses electricity that 10 years ago wasn't a thing, and that's those the grills that plug in and run the pellets. A lot of those pellet smokers plug in. Well, now you think you're grilling, right? It's all outside. It's not, but if it's plugged into a wall, it's got a heater element of some sort. It's something maybe you're not thinking of, but that uses electricity.
It's probably going to be rough. I haven't looked at one, but probably 1,500 watts, just like a lot of things.
Although heat, you don't have to overcome.
Heat, you're not overcoming, but usage, you're still overcoming.
Usage, you are.
But and that's something that I'm going to grill. You're still using electricity in that scenario.
Right.
Again, I'm charcoal, so
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Welcome.
for joining us.
Enjoyed
Our
it.
members always enjoy some efficiency tips. So
they do.
thank you for helping them save some money.
You're welcome.
Before we take off, we always end with just a couple of extra notes.
So OEC Fiber continues to expand. You can always go check availability at oecfiber.com to see if it's in your area.
They are in my yard right now, digging,
Really?
about to put it finally in my neighborhood. After almost 10 years, I finally get it. I'm really excited.
I bet.
We also always highlight a community event on each episode. And this one is the Jazz in June Norman Festival. It happens June 18th through the 20th, held in Andrews Park in Central Norman. So check it out. Thanks for joining us today. You want to add anything else?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you on the next episode.